The Galactic Fleet had been celebrating their victory for days. The once unstoppable alliance of alien empires had faced Earth's feeble resistance and crushed it. The fleets of the galaxy, with their advanced technology and superior numbers, had forced humanity to retreat. The planets and moons once ruled by Earth were now under the control of the Galactic Council. The mighty human fleet was gone, scattered and broken. And with the humans' defeat, the galaxy breathed a collective sigh of relief. The victory celebrations were grand. The fleet commanders ordered fireworks and grand displays of power. Ships of all sizes, painted with the flags of the different alien empires, paraded across the spaceways. The streets of every major capital of the galaxy were lined with excited citizens, cheering for the fall of humanity. The entire galaxy had watched, with smug satisfaction, as Earth was pushed to the edge of extinction. For them, it was a victory against a species that had once been a threat, but had long been forgotten. The humans had been reduced to nothing more than a shadow of their former selves. The stories of their strength and courage were seen as nothing more than myths, fairy tales from a distant past. The galaxy's leaders had ensured that humanity was out of the way, buried under the weight of their defeat. But as the celebrations continued, something strange happened. Something no one had expected. In the control rooms of the Galactic Fleet, technicians and officers studied their scanners and radars, watching for any signs of activity. They had expected Earth's silence to last. They had expected the humans to remain in hiding, to be no more than a footnote in the history of the galaxy. But something was amiss. "We've detected something," a young officer reported nervously, his voice trembling. "It's coming from Earth." At first, no one paid much attention. The humans had been defeated. What possible threat could they still pose? The officers and commanders laughed it off, continuing their celebration. But the officer was persistent. "Sir, this is different. It's not just a single ship. The readings are off the charts." "What do you mean, off the charts?" The fleet commander, General Xalar, asked, raising an eyebrow. He was an alien of great stature, towering above his subordinates, and his sharp eyes could intimidate even the bravest of soldiers. It's impossible," the officer replied, sweat forming on his forehead. "The energy signature matches no known technology. It's like something we've never seen before." A hush fell over the room. The general, for the first time in weeks, felt a chill run down his spine. Could it be? Could the humans have something they weren't aware of? He quickly ordered the officer to redirect all their sensors toward Earth. As the readings became clearer, the officers and commanders grew more concerned. It was not one ship. It was an entire fleet. One by one, ships began to appear on the radar. They were massive, larger than any galactic fleet ship, and their weapons systems appeared far more advanced than anything the galaxy had ever encountered. There was no mistaking it. Earth had not been defeated after all. It had been hiding something dangerous. "I want a full analysis now," General Xalar barked, his voice sharp and commanding. The technicians scrambled to analyze the readings, but the data made no sense. The ships on the radar were like nothing the galaxy had seen before. They seemed to come from nowhere, as if they had been dormant for centuries, just waiting for the right moment. Their appearance was so sudden that the entire fleet was left in shock. Earth's warships were alive again. And they were moving fast, faster than anything the galaxy had ever built. "Send a message to the High Council," General Xalar ordered. "Tell them to prepare for the worst. The humans are not done." As the transmission was sent, panic began to spread among the various fleet commanders. The news of Earth's sudden revival spread quickly. The once feared enemy, thought to be defeated and lost forever, had returned. The galaxy's so-called peace was now in jeopardy. On the edge of the galaxy, Earth's warships began to move through space with a deadly silence. The Phoenix, Earth's largest and most powerful ship, led the fleet. Its sleek, dark shape was almost invisible against the backdrop of space, but its weapons systems hummed with raw energy. The Phoenix was a symbol of Earth's defiance, its strength, and its will to survive. At the heart of the Phoenix stood Commander Kane, a man whose face had once been a symbol of humanity's defeat. Now he was the one who would lead Earth's return to the stars. He had watched as Earth was pushed aside, its people treated like nothing more than pests. But now, they would show the galaxy that humanity was far from weak. Earth had never been truly defeated. Humanity had only been biding its time. Kane stood on the command deck, looking out at the vast expanse of space. His eyes burned with determination. "It's time," he muttered to himself. The fleet's engines roared to life as the warships moved toward the heart of the galaxy, toward the Galactic Fleet's capital. They would not retreat this time. They would not be crushed under the heel of alien conquerors. Earth had fought, survived, and endured. And now, humanity would take its place as a power to be reckoned with. As the fleet of warships approached the galactic core, the first signs of panic began to ripple through the alien empires. Communications from the Galactic Fleet's commanders to the High Council became frantic. But it was too late. Humanity's warships, once thought to be destroyed, had emerged from the shadows, more powerful than ever. They were not here to negotiate. They were not here to beg for mercy. They were here to remind the galaxy of one simple truth: humanity would never again be overlooked. The fleet commanders had celebrated too soon. The war was far from over. The humans were coming, and this time they would not be pushed aside. As the fleet of warships prepared to make their move, General Sailor and the Galactic Fleet's leadership were left in disbelief. They had thought the humans were finished. They had thought the galaxy was safe. But now, they were about to face a force unlike anything they had ever seen. The false victory was over. Humanity's warships had emerged from the darkness, and the galaxy would never be the same again. As the fleet of warships emerged from the shadows, heading toward the heart of the galaxy, panic spread through the ranks of the Galactic Fleet. For the first time since their victory, doubt and fear began to creep into the minds of the alien commanders. The celebrations that had once been filled with joy were now tainted by the reality of what humanity's return meant. General Sailor stood at the command center, his face pale, and his fists clenched tightly. The reports were coming in fast and furious, each one confirming the same horrifying truth. Humanity's warships were real, and they were closing in on their position. They were not simply a small fleet of weak, disorganized ships. No, these were warships with technology far more advanced than anything the Galactic Fleet had ever encountered. "We need to prepare for a counterattack," General Sailor barked to his officers, his voice strained with urgency. But even as he gave the order, deep down he knew the truth. It was too late. Earth's warships had been hiding, waiting for the right moment. They had been out of sight for so long that no one had believed humanity still had the power to fight back. Now, they were about to prove how wrong that assumption was. Reports flooded in from all corners of the galaxy. Fleets from different alien empires, once united in their common goal of defeating Earth, were now scrambling to respond. Messages were being sent to every corner of the galaxy, urging every fleet to regroup and prepare for war. On the battlefield, humanity's warships moved swiftly. The Phoenix led the charge, its engines blazing with energy as it cut through the darkness of space. The other warships followed, their sleek designs a testament to humanity's determination and ingenuity. They were built for war, and they were ready to show the galaxy what Earth was capable of. Commander Kane stood at the helm of the Phoenix, his eyes focused on the view screen. He could see the distant glow of the Galactic Fleet's forces, still scattered and disorganized. The moment of humanity's return had come, and the time for hiding was over. The galaxy had underestimated them, and now it was time to make them pay. "Prepare the fleet," Kane ordered calmly. "We're not here to talk. We're here to show them what happens when they think humanity is weak." The fleet commanders had assumed humanity was finished. They had thought the war was over, that Earth was nothing more than a memory. But they were wrong. The human race had not been broken. They had adapted, evolved, and in secret, they had built a fleet of unimaginable power. Back in the heart of the galaxy, General Seller's mind raced. His officers and commanders were scrambling to prepare for a battle they hadn't expected. The once unified galactic fleet now found itself divided. As fear began to set in, this was not how the war was supposed to end. Earth was supposed to be defeated, its resistance crushed under the might of the galaxy's greatest forces. Instead, the tables had turned. Humanity was back, and they were more powerful than ever. Zeller's hands gripped the edge of his command chair as he watched the incoming fleet of warships approach. He knew the galaxy had underestimated humanity, but now that mistake was about to cost them everything. "They're not asking for peace," Zeller muttered to himself. "They're coming to destroy us." The first wave of humanity's ships arrived at the outskirts of the galaxy, and the shockwaves were felt across the stars. The alien empires, each one once certain of their dominance, now found themselves caught in a fight for their very survival. The human warships, moving with deadly precision, were closing in fast. "We need to get reinforcements," one of the commanders shouted in desperation. "We can't fight them alone." But it was clear that reinforcements were not going to come in time. Humanity had arrived, and they were not just a small fleet. They were a force that would change the course of the galaxy forever. Commander Kane's voice echoed through the communication channels, his message direct and simple. "This is humanity's war now. You will pay for underestimating us." The first volley of fire from humanity's ships lit up the darkness of space. The enemy ships, unprepared for the intensity of the assault, were torn apart by the devastating blasts. The once mighty galactic fleet, once confident in its invincibility, was now scrambling to respond. But it was clear they were outmatched. Humanity had once been thought of as weak, insignificant, a species that could be easily pushed aside. But now, they were showing the galaxy the true extent of their power. The galactic fleet, which had laughed at humanity's supposed primitive technology, was now learning that their victory had been nothing more than a fleeting illusion. As the first battle raged on, General Zeller's face hardened with resolve. He knew this was just the beginning. The war had not ended. It was far from over. Humanity had awoken, and they were determined to reclaim their place in the stars. The tables had turned. The galaxy that had once rejoiced at Earth's fall was now in a state of fear. The victory that had seemed so certain, so complete, was now nothing more than a false triumph. Humanity's warships had emerged from the shadows, and the galaxy would never be the same again. And as the battle continued, Commander Kane looked out at the stars, his heart filled with pride. The fight for humanity's future had just begun. They had been forgotten, underestimated, and dismissed. But now, they were showing the galaxy that the true power of humanity had only just begun to rise. The false victory was over. The war was far from won. And this time, humanity would not be so easily defeated. As humanity's warships advanced, the galaxy's many empires braced for the battle they had long feared but never truly prepared for. The shockwaves from the initial confrontation still echoed through the cosmos, sending ripples of panic among the alien fleets. The galactic fleet, once thought to be unbeatable, had suffered its first significant losses, and the enemy was just getting started. In the heart of the galactic capital, the council of leaders from the various empires convened in a tense emergency meeting. Alien ambassadors from across the stars, who had once been unified in their mockery of humanity, now sat in silence, their faces betraying the gravity of the situation. The Galactic Emperor, a towering figure with eyes that glowed with the faint light of distant stars, slammed his fist on the council table. "How could this happen?" he demanded, his voice a low, rumbling growl that reverberated across the room. Admiral Zoreth, the commander of the Galactic Fleet, stood up, his once confident posture now sagging under the weight of failure. "Your Majesty, we did not foresee this. We believed humanity was finished, that they were nothing more than a faint memory of a long-dead race. But the truth is, They were always out there, hidden, building their strength. A murmur of disbelief spread throughout the room as the ambassadors exchanged worried glances. The Emperor's gaze hardened, turning toward Zoreth with a look that could freeze a sun in its tracks. "You're telling me that after everything, after all our victories, we never truly defeated them?" The Emperor's voice was a mixture of anger and disbelief. Zoreth nodded grimly. "It seems we underestimated them, my lord. We assumed the Earth's fleet had been wiped out in the final battle. We thought that by scattering their colonies and cutting off their communication, we had broken their spirit. But we were wrong. We had no idea they were quietly rebuilding, waiting for the right moment to strike." The Emperor's fingers clenched around the armrests of his throne, his sharp claws digging into the metal. "This is unacceptable. We are the masters of the galaxy. No species, especially not one as primitive as humanity, should be able to rise again. We cannot allow this to continue." Another council member, a reptilian diplomat from the Sithar Dominion, spoke up. "We have to strike back, and quickly. Their warships are powerful, yes, but they are still few in number compared to the combined fleets of the galaxy. We must unite our forces and crush them before they can gain more ground." The Emperor turned his gaze toward the diplomat, his eyes narrowing. "You're suggesting we ignore the very real possibility that they have more ships hidden away, that they might have weapons we know nothing about?" "We cannot ignore them," the Sithar ambassador insisted. "We must fight back with everything we have. Their surprise attack has shaken our forces, but we can still defeat them." Another voice, this time from the Trian Coalition, a race known for its advanced technological capabilities, spoke up. "We must also consider their strategy. They didn't just attack blindly. They hit us where we were weakest, in our supply lines and communication networks. We underestimated them, but we can't afford to do so again. We must regroup, reinforce our defenses, and prepare for their next move." The room grew heavy with tension as the leaders weighed their options. The idea of facing humanity again, after thinking they had secured a final victory, was more than just a challenge. It was a nightmare. Humanity's warships, though fewer in number, were proving to be a force of incredible destruction, and no one knew how many more they had waiting in the wings. Back at the edge of the galaxy, Commander Kane and his fleet were already preparing for the next stage of the war. Humanity had always known that their return would be met with resistance, but they had also known that the galaxy's leaders would underestimate their resilience. They had counted on it. Kane stood on the bridge of the Phoenix, his eyes focused on the star-filled void outside. The fleet was coming together, ready to strike once more. They had made their mark, but this was just the beginning. "We've got their attention," Kane said, his voice steady and filled with determination. "Now we need to keep the pressure on. We can't let them regroup. We push forward, fast and hard. The galaxy needs to know that humanity is back, and we're not going anywhere." The bridge crew worked with swift precision, feeding Kane the latest intel from the battle. He saw the enemy fleets pulling back, consolidating their forces in a desperate attempt to regain control. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. But Kane knew they would strike again. The galaxy's empires weren't just going to sit back and let humanity take the stars without a fight. The war was far from over. As the Phoenix readied its next offensive, Kane couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. This was what humanity had fought for. This was the moment they had been waiting for. The galaxy thought they had won, but they had been wrong. Humanity's machines of war were awakening, and they would not be silenced again. The first volley of fire was launched, and the Phoenix unleashed its power once more. The battle for the galaxy had only just begun. As the tension mounted throughout the galaxy, both the Galactic Council and humanity's war fleet were bracing for what would come next. On the battlefield, the vast expanse of space seemed quiet, as if the entire galaxy was holding its breath. The calm after the initial skirmish was unsettling, and everyone knew that this fragile peace would soon shatter. Commander Kane stood on the command deck of the Phoenix, his eyes locked onto the holographic display of the galaxy's layout. His fleet was in position, ready to strike at the heart of the Galactic Empire. But the question was, would the Empire retaliate or would they continue to regroup and plan? He knew it was only a matter of time before the aliens made their next move. They had to. "We've given them a glimpse of what we can do," Kane muttered under his breath. "Now we need to show them the full extent." His words were not just a rallying cry for his fleet. They were a declaration of humanity's determination. The war was far from over. If anything, humanity had only just begun to show what it was capable of. As the days passed, Kane's fleet continued its silent preparation. The Phoenix and the ships under its command were equipped with advanced technology that most of the galaxy had never even imagined. These were warships that had been hidden away for centuries, waiting for the moment when humanity would need them most. And that moment had arrived. But the enemy wasn't just sitting back. The Galactic Fleet was no longer underestimating humanity. They were planning their counteroffensive, gathering reinforcements from across the galaxy, and preparing for what would be their greatest battle in centuries. At the Galactic Fleet's command center, Admiral Zorath was furiously coordinating with his officers. His calm demeanor had been replaced with urgency. His people, once so sure of their dominance, were now on the defensive. The damage done to their fleets in the last battle was significant, but more concerning was the realization that humanity was not an easy enemy. They had shown themselves to be resilient, resourceful, and capable of fighting on equal terms with the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. The humans have made their move, and they won't stop until they've taken everything, Zorath said as he stared at the holographic map of their fleet's position. His fingers tapped anxiously on the edge of his desk. "We cannot underestimate them any longer." He turned to his advisors. "Prepare the fleets for a full assault. We need to eliminate the Phoenix and its fleet once and for all. No more delays." Zorath's command was clear, but even he knew that the situation was precarious. Humanity had demonstrated that they could strike unexpectedly and without warning. The Galactic Fleet's commanders were no longer so confident in their superiority. The belief that they could easily crush humanity had evaporated with each ship that fell. Back on Earth, Kane was briefed on the latest reports from his scouts. The enemy was preparing to launch a full-scale counterattack, but there was a chance they still hadn't fully recovered from the last battle. Humanity's goal was clear: keep the pressure on, take out any weak points, and force the Galactic Fleet to surrender or face annihilation. Kane stood before his fleet once again, gathering his crew for another briefing. "We've struck a serious blow to the Galactic Fleet, but we need to keep the pressure on. The enemy is regrouping, and we know they'll come for us with everything they have. We're not just fighting for our survival anymore. We're fighting for the future of humanity." The crew was silent, their eyes filled with determination. This was a fight unlike anything humanity had ever known, and there was no turning back. Kane's voice grew more urgent. "We need to stay one step ahead of them. We've got the technology, we've got the ships, and most importantly, we've got the will to win. The galaxy doesn't know what's coming." As the Phoenix and the other warships left Earth's orbit, a new resolve filled their ranks. Every person on board knew the stakes, and they were ready. The war wasn't just about protecting Earth anymore. It was about making a statement to the galaxy that humanity would not be ignored or swept aside. It was time to take the fight to the stars. Meanwhile, far from Earth, the Galactic Fleet's forces were finally prepared to confront the threat humanity posed. Thousands of warships, ready to defend the galaxy's dominion, assembled in a massive fleet. The Galactic Empire, once confident in its superiority, now found itself on the edge of a fight for its very existence. Admiral Zorath stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Sovereign's Edge, his gaze fixed on the fleet arrayed before him. This would be the turning point. The humans had proven their strength, but now it was time to end it. With a sharp order, he gave the signal to move forward. "Move out. All ships, engage." Zorath's voice was filled with resolve. He would not allow humanity's rebellion to continue any longer. But as the galactic fleet advanced, they didn't know the true strength of what they were about to face. Humanity's warships, though fewer in number, were more than just machines of destruction. They were symbols of an entire species fighting for their place in the universe. In the vast emptiness of space, the two fleets were headed toward each other, unaware that the outcome of this battle would forever change the fate of the galaxy. The stage was set. The next battle would be the one that determined the fate of humanity and the future of the galaxy itself. The darkness of space seemed to stretch on endlessly as both fleets moved closer. The quiet hum of the ships was all that could be heard on the command decks, a stark contrast to the tension that crackled in the air. Every officer, every soldier on both sides, knew that the upcoming battle would decide more than just the fate of the war. It would determine the future of entire civilizations. Commander Kane stood at the bridge of the Phoenix, his eyes scanning the holographic display as it updated with the latest positions of the galactic fleet. His thoughts were focused, calculating, and sharp. He had been in battles before, but nothing compared to this moment. This wasn't just a fight for survival. It was a fight to show the galaxy that humanity would not back down. The Galactic Empire had underestimated them once, but now they were going to see the true strength of humanity. "Admiral, they're closing in," said Lieutenant Markov, breaking the silence. "We've got maybe 5 minutes before they're in range." Kane nodded. His voice was calm, but his heart was pounding in his chest. "All ships, prepare for engagement. We've been through worse. Let's show them what humanity is made of." The crew, already in position, began to move with practiced precision. The Phoenix's engines hummed louder as the warship accelerated toward the oncoming enemy fleet. It was an intimidating sight. Dozens of massive galactic warships, all bristling with advanced weaponry and shields, lined up against a fleet that, though outnumbered, had humanity's willpower and ingenuity behind it. At that moment, Kane's mind flashed back to the quiet years before the war began. For 1,000,000 years, humanity had lived on the edge of extinction, constantly fighting for survival, constantly adapting to the harshness of the universe. This was nothing new. Humanity was born to endure. But now, they were fighting for something much bigger than themselves. They were fighting for the right to exist in a galaxy that had forgotten them. "We have to win this," Kane muttered, more to himself than anyone else. He glanced over at his first officer, Commander Reynolds, who was quietly standing by his side. "You've led us through this far, sir," Reynolds said with a firm nod. "We'll win this battle. We're ready." On the other side, the galactic fleet moved forward under Admiral Zorath's command. The vast ships of the Empire glinted with their deadly, imposing presence. Zorath stood at the command deck, watching as the enemy approached. The Sovereign's Edge, his flagship, was the largest and most powerful ship in the fleet, its weapon systems glowing with readiness. Zorath knew this would be the fight to end all fights. If they could crush humanity's remaining warships, the rebellion would finally be over. The humans, who had dared to challenge their might, would be wiped from the galaxy once and for all. "Prepare for battle." Zorath's voice cut through the hum of the bridge. His cold, calculating demeanor had not faltered. "Engage at full power. We take no prisoners." As the two fleets continued their approach, the tension was unbearable. Both sides knew that this was no ordinary skirmish. The next few moments would decide everything. Without warning, the silence of space was shattered by the first salvo of energy weapons. Brilliant beams of light shot across the darkness, hitting the shields of the first galactic ships. The explosion of energy rippled through the void, sending shockwaves that rattled even the most hardened commanders. "Shields at full strength," shouted Commander Reynolds, his voice steady, but filled with urgency. "We're holding strong," reported Lieutenant Markov, his fingers flying across the controls. "But they're coming in fast." The Phoenix fired back, its advanced weapons systems cutting through the emptiness of space with deadly precision. Each blast from humanity's warships tore into the enemy's shields, forcing the Galactic Fleet to adapt quickly. They had thought this would be a simple victory, but they were quickly realizing just how wrong they were. Zorath's eyes narrowed as he watched the enemy fire. The humans weren't just skilled, they were resourceful. They had learned from every mistake and every failure, and now they were using that knowledge to fight back with incredible effectiveness. "This won't be as easy as we thought," Zorath said coldly, his voice betraying his frustration. "Bring in reinforcements. We need to crush them now." The battle raged on, explosions lighting up the void of space like deadly fireworks. Humanity's fleet, though fewer in number, was striking with precision. Every shot was calculated, every maneuver deliberate. They were showing the Galactic Fleet that they were not just a nuisance to be swept away. They were a force to be reckoned with. Back aboard the Phoenix, Kane watched the battle unfold, his mind calculating their next move. The Galactic Fleet was beginning to show signs of strain. The humans had thrown everything they had into this fight, and they were starting to turn the tide. "We need to keep pushing," Kane said firmly. "Target their flagship. If we can disable Zorath's command ship, we can cripple their entire fleet." Lieutenant Markov quickly adjusted the targeting systems, locking onto the Sovereign's edge. The Phoenix's weapon systems powered up, and in an instant, a barrage of fire was launched toward the flagship. The shots hit with perfect accuracy, striking the enemy ship's shields and sending sparks flying. Zorath, on his flagship, could feel the tremor of the impact. The Sovereign's edge shook under the fire, and the shields flared bright with each successive hit. "Hold steady," Zorath commanded. "Bring all power to the forward shields. We cannot let them break through." The battle was far from over, but humanity was beginning to make its mark. The Galactic Fleet, so confident just moments ago, was now in a fight for survival. This was the moment the galaxy had feared. Humanity had come for its place in the stars, and they were showing the universe that they would not go down without a fight. As the battle continued, both sides knew that the outcome of this war was no longer certain. The stage was set for the final confrontation. Humanity's warships had emerged from the shadows, and they were proving to be more than a match for the galaxy's mightiest fleet. The war had only just begun. The battle between the Galactic Fleet and humanity's warships raged on, and the stakes had never been higher. Explosions lit up the darkness of space, and the soundless shockwaves reverberated through the minds of those watching from both sides. The Galactic Empire, once so sure of its dominance, was beginning to falter. Humanity had not only survived their onslaught, but had begun to push back, proving that their will to fight was stronger than any enemy's expectations. On the Phoenix, Commander Kane stood at the forefront, watching the chaos unfold on the battle screens. He could feel the weight of this fight in every bone of his body. His crew was tired, but their resolve was unwavering. They had endured years of hardship, years of being treated as nothing more than a footnote in the galaxy's history. But now, they had shown the universe that humanity's legacy was far from over. "Commander, the Sovereign's edge is still holding strong. Their shields are taking a lot of punishment, but they won't last forever," Lieutenant Markov reported, his voice tight with concentration. Kane nodded, his mind racing. The Galactic Fleet had underestimated humanity's strength. The Sovereign's edge had been the symbol of the Empire's might, but now it was a target. If they could disable Zorath's flagship, the rest of the fleet would be thrown into chaos. The thought brought a sense of urgency to Kane's every word. "Concentrate fire on their forward shields," Kane ordered. "We need to break through their defenses. Markov, get me a clear shot at their command bridge." Markov's fingers flew across the controls, his eyes never leaving the holographic display in front of him. "Aye, Commander." Preparing a focused barrage. Meanwhile, on the flagship Sovereign's edge, Admiral Zorath clenched his fists. He had never anticipated this level of resistance from the humans. He had expected them to be weak, disorganized, and easy to crush. But they were relentless. Every countermeasure he deployed, every strategy he used, was met with an equal or greater response. The human warships were not backing down, not retreating. They were fighting as if their very existence depended on this battle, which, in truth, it did. "Admiral, we've lost another frigate. The Sovereign's Edge's outer hull is taking significant damage," one of his officers reported with a hint of fear in his voice. Zorath's eyes narrowed. He had always believed that humanity was a fleeting threat, something that could be erased with minimal effort. But now, as his ships fell one by one, he realized how wrong he had been. The humans were showing no signs of fear, no hesitation. They were standing their ground, and it was starting to cost him dearly. "Reinforcements are on the way," Zorath said, his voice cold, but tinged with desperation. "We cannot allow this to continue. Bring in the fleet's full firepower. Take down their flagship. We cannot lose." Despite his orders, he could feel the walls of control tightening around him. His fleet was crumbling under the onslaught from the humans. If they didn't act quickly, the Sovereign's Edge would be vulnerable, and the entire galactic fleet would fall apart. The tension in the air was palpable. The Phoenix, despite being outnumbered, had outmaneuvered the enemy time and time again. The power of humanity's warships was undeniable. They were not just fighting to survive. They were fighting to win. The Sovereign's Edge's shields were weakening. Kane could see it clearly on the tactical display. "Commander, we're getting a lock on the Sovereign's Edge. Targeting systems are primed," Markov said, his voice steady but with a hint of excitement. "Do it," Kane replied, his voice calm, though a fierce fire burned in his chest. In an instant, the Phoenix's weapon systems hummed to life. A series of energy blasts shot from the ship, speeding through the vacuum of space toward the Sovereign's Edge. The blasts hit their mark with a series of deafening impacts, shaking the entire ship. The Sovereign's Edge's shields flared bright before flickering weakly, unable to absorb the relentless barrage. Zorath's eyes widened as his ship rocked under the force of the human fire. His flagship's outer hull was beginning to crack under the pressure. "Admiral, the shields won't hold much longer," another officer cried out. Zorath's jaw clenched. This was no longer just a battle. It was a matter of survival. He had been so certain of victory. Now he could feel the ground slipping away beneath him. "We have to take them down," Zorath said, his voice trembling with frustration. "Full power to the forward weapons. Let's end this." The Sovereign's Edge fired back, a massive barrage of energy pulses lighting up the dark expanse of space. The blasts hit the Phoenix's shields, but they held. The human warship was resilient, and it had a crew that was unwilling to give up. On the bridge of the Phoenix, Kane watched the galactic fleet's retaliation. They were hitting hard, but humanity had always been resilient. They had fought for survival on Earth for centuries, adapting to the challenges they faced, learning from every failure. This was no different. They had survived, and they would thrive. The Phoenix returned fire, striking the Sovereign's Edge once more, sending the galactic flagship into a deadly spiral. The once mighty ship was now limping, unable to fend off the assault. "Commander, we've breached their shields," Markov announced, his voice filled with triumph. "We're through. The Sovereign's Edge is exposed." Kane's heart raced. This was it, the moment they had fought for. The galactic fleet, once so confident, was now on the verge of collapse. "All ships, focus fire on the Sovereign's Edge," Kane ordered, his voice unwavering. "We end this now." The final blows were struck, and the Sovereign's Edge crumbled under the weight of humanity's relentless assault. The flagship, once thought indestructible, now floated lifelessly in space, a monument to the Empire's arrogance. But the battle was far from over. The rest of the galactic fleet, though shaken, was still intact, and humanity had yet to prove that they could hold their ground. The war was still raging, and there would be many more battles to come. However, for the first time in a long while, there was a glimmer of hope. Humanity's warships had emerged victorious, and the galactic fleet had been dealt a crushing blow. The galaxy would never forget this moment. the moment when humanity's machines roared to life, and the tide of the war shifted forever. The battle had taken a dramatic turn, and the sight of the Sovereign's Edge drifting through space, crippled and silent, sent shockwaves throughout the entire galactic fleet. The once feared empire had been forced to reckon with the resilience and power of humanity's warships. The Phoenix had delivered the decisive blow, but it wasn't just a victory for one ship. It was a victory for every human who had ever fought for their survival, their freedom, and their place in the galaxy. Yet, despite the blow to the galactic fleet, the war was far from over. The galaxy was vast, and the enemy was not easily defeated. As the Phoenix and its sister ships circled the debris of the Sovereign's Edge, Kane's mind raced. They had won a significant battle, but the real war was still raging. "We've done it, Commander," Markov said, his voice filled with awe and disbelief. "We've taken down their flagship. We've shown them that humanity won't back down." Kane's gaze remained fixed on the shattered remains of the Sovereign's Edge. He allowed himself a brief moment of satisfaction, but there was no time for celebration. The galactic fleet had lost one ship, but they still had an entire armada. "We've made our mark," Kane said, his voice steady. "But the fight isn't over yet. We can't let our guard down. There's more to come." As he spoke, the communication officer's voice rang out. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Empire." Kane's heart skipped a beat. The message would undoubtedly be a threat, a demand for surrender, or perhaps a warning. The Empire had underestimated humanity before, but now, with one of their flagship vessels destroyed, they might finally realize the true extent of humanity's strength. "Put it through," Kane said, his voice hardening. A projection flickered to life in the center of the bridge, and there, standing tall and proud, was Zorath. His expression was a mixture of fury and grudging respect. Despite the defeat, he stood unbowed. "Commander Kane," Zorath's voice was low, dangerous. "You've struck a blow to the heart of the Empire, but don't mistake this for victory. The galaxy will remember this moment, and it will be a lesson that you cannot win against us." Zorath's words were sharp, but Kane saw the cracks in his confidence. The galactic fleet had suffered a heavy loss. They may have been proud, but the defeat of their flagship would resonate for years to come. The tide had shifted, and Zorath knew it. "You're wrong, Zorath," Kane said calmly, his words like ice. "Humanity has never given up. We've always fought back, and we always will. This is just the beginning." Zorath's eyes narrowed, his fury evident. "Do not underestimate us, Commander. You may have won a battle, but the war is far from over. You will not defeat the Empire." "I don't need to defeat the Empire," Kane replied, a determined edge to his voice. "We only need to remind the galaxy that humanity is here to stay." With that, the transmission cut off, leaving the bridge of the Phoenix in silence. The crew exchanged glances, each member understanding the gravity of the situation. Zorath's words were not just threats, they were a challenge. But humanity had always risen to the occasion. Kane turned to his crew, his face grim but resolute. "We've won a major battle, but this war is far from over. The Empire will regroup, but we'll be ready for them. We will show them that they have underestimated us, that humanity is a force to be reckoned with." The crew stood tall, their faces set with determination. They had fought against overwhelming odds, and they had proven their worth. But the war was far from over. The galactic fleet would not simply accept defeat, and humanity's fight for survival would continue. Across the galaxy, news of the Sovereign's Edge's destruction spread like wildfire. The Empire was shaken, but they were far from broken. Their fleet was still powerful, and they would come for humanity with a vengeance. But the people of Earth had shown the galaxy something they could no longer ignore. Humanity was not just a species to be crushed underfoot. They were survivors, warriors, and they would fight until their last breath. In the far corners of space, the rest of humanity's warships began to stir. The machines of war that had been dormant for centuries now came to life. The fleet was far from finished. The war was just beginning. Kane knew that this was only the first step. There would be many more battles, many more challenges to face, but for the first time, he believed they had a chance. Humanity's warships had awakened, and with them, the will to fight. As the Phoenix and its fleet moved away from the wreckage of the Sovereign's Edge, the silence of space seemed to echo with the promise of a new chapter. The galaxy would never forget this day. The day humanity fought back, and the day they reminded the universe that they were not to be underestimated. The war was not over, but humanity had proven that it was far from defeated. And now, the Galactic Empire would face the true power of Earth's war machines.